Hello, and welcome back to Clark Crawford Sports. Last week, I gave you my NFC preview on where teams are at in their season, and today I'm going to be giving you my AFC preview of where teams are at headed into week 11 of their season. So let's get started. To start off with the AFC, we're going to go to the Kansas City Chiefs, who are up first. Leading the AFC with the 7-2 record, their offense has seen its fair share of ups and downs with plenty of inconsistencies, though the defense has been top 10 all season to lead Kansas City to their 7-2 record. Now, not to say that Kansas City doesn't have their fair share of stars on offense. You still got Pat Mahomes and you still got Travis Kelce, but Mahomes and Kelce's have been inconsistent this year, and Kansas City, the record doesn't show for it, but as I said, their offense has been inconsistent. Now, to me, their biggest issue is obviously when they traded Tyreek Hill. Their wide receiver room is definitely still one of the worst in the league. It's been abysmal. They don't have a true number one wide receiver as most teams do, and to me, that's Kansas City's biggest lack on their team. They were able to overcome it last year with, as I said, one of the weakest wide receiver rooms in the league. So it brings the question, can they do it again? Can they overcome it? Now, what they have going for them is they have the best tight end in the league. Most will say they have the best QB, and they definitely have the right coach to get the job done. With a, as I said, top 10 defense, Kansas City is primed to make another Super Bowl run. And will they become the first team since the 04-05 New England Patriots to repeat as Super Bowl champions? Next up in the AFC West is the second place Las Vegas Raiders. Now the Raiders are at 5-5 headed into a Week 11 matchup at the Miami Dolphins. Vegas is 4-1 at home and 1-4 on the road. So if odds makers would tell you, they're probably likely to lose this game on the road. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have a chance in this game, but Miami has feasted on teams who have either a 500 record when they play them or a losing record. Now, to get back to the Raiders fired Josh McDaniels a couple weeks ago, and since then they've gone 2-0 since former defensive player Antonio Pierce has taken over the interim job as head coach. Josh McDaniels was a disaster and is one in almost a half season with the team as their coach. He signed a lucrative 6-year deal to be the Raiders head coach. It was a disaster, and the Raiders moved on quickly. They're going to have a lot of dead money in the coaching department, but kudos to the Raiders for realizing they made a mistake and quickly getting rid of it. Now, the other mistake they may need to get rid of, at least in my opinion, is they signed Jimmy Garoppolo to a 3-year, $72.5 million deal. He's been a disaster. He's also been injured. It's not a good look for the Raiders. I think they need to move on from him as well. With all that being said, they've got a middle-of-the-pack defense with a rocky start to the season, but they sit as the 9th seed in the AFC, only one game back to the 7th seed, which would get them in the postseason. Now, their now starting QB is Aiden O'Connell, who is the likely QB1 for the rest of the year. We'll see what the rookie is made of, as he's made a couple starts so far this season, and we'll see if he can lead them to the postseason. Third place in the AFC West belongs to the 4-5 Los Angeles Chargers, coming off a brutal 41-38 loss to the Detroit Lions, which brought them to 4-5. The Chargers, as they've shown the last few years since they drafted sensational QB Justin Herbert, they can put up points. Now the question, as it's been for a long time, even back to when they had Phillip Rivers, is can they make the stops defensively? The Chargers defense this season gives up the second most yardage per game. And now they do have an outstanding pass rush of Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, but their secondary and poor linebacker play almost negate their great pass rush unless those guys are getting to the quarterback every single play and wreaking havoc in the backfield. Now, I don't even believe the Chargers' defense is their biggest issue on the team. I think the biggest issue on the team is the head coach position of Brandon Staley. He's not been a good head coach since the Chargers hired him a few years back. He's come with a lot of ups and downs, as most notably being they were up 27 to nothing at halftime against the Jaguars last year in the postseason, and they found a way to lose that game. Brandon Staley just finds ways to lose games. You would think the Chargers would win, and in my opinion, they need to fire Brandon Staley, and they, in my also opinion, should have made Kellen Moore their head coach instead of their offensive coordinator in the offseason. But nonetheless, they decided to put Kellen Moore in charge as the offensive coordinator. And I think he's done outstanding with the Chargers. He's bringing out a pretty good side of Justin Herbert, as Herbert was already one of the better quarterbacks in the league. He makes a ton of great passes, highlight plays. He's up there in passing yards and touchdowns. But my question with Justin Herbert is, can Kellen Moore unlock his full potential? As I said, Justin Herbert puts up a lot of highlight plays and touchdowns, but since he was drafted in 2020, Justin Herbert's career record is 29-29. So can Justin Herbert just be a guy who puts up yardage and touchdowns, or can he at some point become a winning quarterback and get the winning results you want to where the Chargers are trying to head as potentially winning a Super Bowl in the future? Last place in the AFC West with an identical record to the LA Chargers is the Denver Broncos. Broncos head into Week 11 with a home matchup against the Minnesota Vikings, who are riding a 3-game win streak. Russell Wilson is resurrecting his career as compared to last year, where he put up career worst numbers in most statistical categories. Broncos made the right decision firing Nathaniel Hackett and replacing him with future Hall of Fame coach Sean Payton. They've improved over the disastrous 2022 season. They remain in last place in the AFC West, though during their 3-game win streak, they found exceptional success in running the football, as starting running back Javonte Williams is getting closer to 100% as the season progresses. He's coming off of a major knee injury, which caused him to miss a large chunk of last season. A question remains for Sean Payton, as he's found a recipe to success. Can he bring playoff football back to Denver, or will their early season struggles return, causing them to watch the playoffs on their couches yet again, as they have every year since 2015. Sean Payton has been miraculous as compared to Nathaniel Hackett last season, but Denver still is a ways away from getting into the playoffs and really being a contender again, as they haven't been since 2015. Moving on to the AFC East, and that brings the first place Miami Dolphins. They lead the division at 6-3, one game ahead of the 5-5 Buffalo Bills. The good news for Miami so far this season is Tua Tagovailoa has taken the next step in his development as QB. The most important thing for him has been there's been no major health concerns so far this year, as that's been a big question in the past in college and in the NFL. Is when he's healthy, he's a good quarterback, but at times he's not healthy. So far, he's leading the 6-3 Dolphins. Tua has been a top 10 quarterback this season. He will have to continue that trend for Miami to potentially make a deep playoff run. Something to make note of with this Dolphins team is they have a top 5 run game in the league, which has been opening things up for wide receiver weapons, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who are a top 5 duo in the league. What's a 2023 Dolphins must answer for me to call them a potential Super Bowl contender is they are 0-3 teams against above 500 teams, with all 6 of their wins obviously coming against teams who are at or below 500. For me, the Dolphins have plenty to prove before I can take them off my list as pretenders and onto my list as a Super Bowl contender. Leads us to the second place team in the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills. They're sitting, as I mentioned already, at 5-5 through 10 weeks. One of the few teams left who has not had their bye week yet this season. They host the Jets this upcoming Sunday. the Bills lost to the same Jets team in week 1 in overtime 22-16, a game where the Jets lost starting QB Aaron Rodgers, and if you ask Jets fans, he was going to be the savior of their team. Now, getting back to the Bills, in that same game, Josh Allen choked the game away by throwing 3 interceptions. It's a game Buffalo let slip through their fingers as they have several other games this season. Buffalo could easily be a 7-3 or an 8-2 team, but they're consistently coming up short when they should be beating teams below 500. Now, for the Buffalo Bills, they're one of 2 teams I predicted who would take a step back this season, along with the Giants, who have been a disaster, and that's another topic for another day. Now, with the Bills, the reason I predicted they would take a step back before the season started, I don't think they did enough to upgrade their roster, especially offensively, falling short 3 consecutive years in hopes of their Super Bowl aspirations. As I said, they didn't do enough offensively to improve their roster in the offseason. There were other receivers I believe they could have gone and gotten, as they have their number 1 in Stephon Diggs, who I think they, at this rate, underutilized on top of everything. Yes, they did draft Dalton Kincaid at the tight end position, but Buffalo is still lacking wide receiver help other than Stephon Diggs. Yes, they have Gabe Davis, who at times he'll have a 3-touchdown week, and then the next week he'll go for 1 catch for 20 yards. Gabe Davis is too inconsistent. He drops passes. He's not a true number 2 receiver. He's really a true number 3 receiver. And speaking of the Buffalo Bills and getting back to Josh Allen, he's a turnover-prone quarterback who coughs the ball up far too often. He's costing the Bills more games than he should be. Now, the Bills did just fire their offensive coordinator, but I don't think their offensive coordinator was their biggest issue. As I mentioned, Josh Allen is just by far turning the ball over too many times. I think they're using their offensive coordinator as the scapegoat, and Josh Allen will likely continue to turn the ball over dozens and dozens of times. Now, for the Bills, they're trying to right the ship of their season, but the problem is, to get back in the playoff hunt, they don't have an easy schedule. 4 of their final 7 games are against teams currently in the playoff picture. It remains to be seen if the Bills can turn their season around quickly enough to become, as they were at the beginning of the year, one of the favorites to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. Third place in the AFC East is the Aaron Rodgers-less New York Jets. New York heads to Buffalo for their Week 11 matchup, as I mentioned, bringing a 4-5 record with them into the game. It seems to be a lost season for the Jets, as their fans had reason for hope for the first time since the early 2010s, when Mark Sanchez led them to back-to-back AFC title game appearances. Their Super Bowl hopes, if you ask their fans, went out the window on the 4th snap of the season as 39-year-old traded for Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles tendon. Jets had one of the top 5 defenses in the league with tons of talent, but their defensive performances this season, holding a lot of good teams to low-scoring games, is being wasted by a mediocre offense at best, led by Zach Wilson, who's been a bust since they drafted him 2nd overall back in 2021. Even if the reported potential return of Aaron Rodgers happens sometimes in December, I believe at that point, Zach Wilson, along with not great coaching, will have played them out of the playoff picture by then, so it would be a little too late for their 2023 season and their playoff hopes. Moving on to last place in the AFC East, that will lead us to the 2-8 New England Patriots. Their 1.5 game lead for last place in the AFC continues to haunt them, as the Patriots are one of the worst teams in football and also one of the worst teams in the league since Tom Brady left them for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a few seasons ago. But I mean, who could have predicted New England would have fallen off a cliff after losing arguably the greatest player of all time, Tom Brady? It is clear Brady was keeping the dynasty alive for so long. As is Bill Belichick the answer to the future to bring the Patriots back to dominance? I don't think so. I think the Patriots, if they're smart, need to move on from Bill Belichick. Now, he has gone from Tom Brady to Mac Jones, but if Bill Belichick was the great coach, as he wasn't before Tom Brady, wouldn't he be able to get the best out of Mac Jones? Because as far as I've seen, the opposites happen. Now, Mac Jones, speaking of him, got benched this last week in Germany, and maybe the Patriots should have left him in Germany after he was benched late in the fourth quarter against the Colts, a game they lost 10-6. New England only scored 6 points in an NFL football game. That's embarrassing. Things since the beginning of 22 have gone so poorly that the Patriots are probably going to move on, as rumors have it, from Bill Belichick, one of the best coaches on record in NFL history. Belichick will go into the Hall of Fame because of Tom Brady, but the past 2 seasons have shown that Belichick, in my opinion, is nothing without him. Now, the Patriots are a dumpster fire right now, and they need to move. They need to make several moves to try to turn around their franchise over the last few years. I think it starts with they need to bring in a younger coach and obviously move on from quarterback Mac Jones, who, as I said, has been a dumpster fire. The third of 4 divisions in the AFC, leading that division, will feature the 6-3 Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars lead the division for now, coming off of a blowout loss, coming off their bye week with another home game this week as they try to rebound against the Tennessee Titans. They got blown out by the San Francisco 49ers as, once again, Trevor Lawrence honestly kind of looks like dog crap. Lawrence this season so far, through 9 games, has thrown a total of 9 touchdowns. That's not the Trevor Lawrence we saw last season, as it's almost just as we saw in season 1 with the disaster of Urban Meyer. It seems Trevor Lawrence is starting, at least so far this season, starting to take a step back to where he was in his rookie year, where he looked like one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. What I've seen from Trevor Lawrence is, so far this season, either he's overthrowing his receivers or underthrowing his receivers. I think it's simple mistakes that Trevor Lawrence can fix, and obviously his receivers have dropped a few passes here and there. Not everything's on Trevor Lawrence, but I think it's simple mistakes Trevor Lawrence can fix, because throwing 9 touchdowns in 9 games is not the elite quarterback the Jaguars were hoping they drafted number 1 overall a few seasons ago. Trevor Lawrence must raise his game for them to keep their 1-game lead in the division with the surprise Houston Texans hot on their heels. If Jacksonville and Houston take care of business this upcoming week, a Week 12 showdown for what I believe will decide the division will be on the line at NRG Stadium coming up next Sunday. So for the Jaguars, I think they need to win this week against the Titans at home and win next week on the road in Houston to prove to me that, as of right now, I think they're pretenders and they're kind of a fluke division winner because it's such a weak division. And for them to prove to me that they're true contenders, they need to win the next 2 weeks to show their dominance in the AFC South. Now, moving on to the aforementioned Houston Texans, they're one of the biggest surprises to this point in the 2023 season. They have a 5-4 record. Headed into Week 11, the Texans will square off with the date at home against the 1-8 Arizona Cardinals. The Texans, as I said, they've been one of the biggest surprises in the NFL to this point. The team is led by rookie head coach DeMeco Ryans and likely Offensive Rookie of the Year C.J. Stroud, who both of them have taken the league by storm. What's crazy about the Texans is, had they not lost to Carolina and Atlanta on game-winning field goals, they could be 7-2 as opposed to 5-4 and leading the AFC South, coming off of a 3-13-1 season. They're one of the most improved teams from 2022 to 2023, if not the most improved. If C.J. Stroud can maintain this elite level play he has shown as a rookie, then the current Texans team sitting as the 7th seed in the playoff picture could make some noise the rest of the season and potentially in the playoffs. If you followed Stroud's college days, he played at Ohio State, as he proved time and time again he was ready for the big stage of the NFL coming out of college as he was drafted the number 2 overall. Remember his outstanding performance against eventual national champion Georgia, where he nearly pulled off an upset as Georgia was undefeated going into that game in the playoff semifinal? He has been better than anyone could imagine through 9 weeks, as he's even in the MVP conversation. Now, many people predicted Stroud would win Offensive Rookie of the Year, but he's even raised his game to another level. So, if Stroud can continue to play like this, he might show quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert, just to name a few of the top quarterbacks in the league. He might prove to them just in his rookie season that there might be a new sheriff in town. Next up in the AFC South is the third place Indianapolis Colts. They have a 5-5 record coming into their Week 11 bye. They're one of the few teams in the league who has not had their bye week yet. And like the Texans, the Colts began the season with a rookie head coach and a rookie QB. Unfortunately for the Colts, they lost their rookie QB, and he's out for the season, Anthony Richardson. But backup QB and mustache legend Gardner Minshew has stepped in brilliantly, keeping the Colts' season alive and keeping the Colts in the playoff hunt. For Indianapolis, I believe a lot of the credit to their success on the season so far should go to now head coach and previously offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, Shane Steichen. He's done a hell of a job in his first season as coach, and I believe he should be in the running for Coach of the Year, along with D'Amico Ryans, just to name two. There's a few more coaches who deserve to be in that with that recognition. Shane Steichen deserves all the credit in the world in my mind because he came over from the Philadelphia Eagles, where he called plays for several seasons, turning the Eagles into, you could easily say, an offensive juggernaut. He's done a fairly nice job so far, beginning the season so far with the Colts. Now, the question is, can he replicate it and maybe lead the Colts into the playoffs in his first season as coach? The other question is, can he continue this so far success with Anthony Richardson next season? That remains to be seen. But the Colts, like I said, have been one of the biggest surprises in the league at 5-5, as they drafted number 4 overall this past season. So the Colts are still alive in the playoff hunt, and we'll see if they can sneak into one of those playoff spots in the AFC. Just to the cellar of the AFC South, holding down last place, that is the 3-6 Tennessee Titans. Tennessee is not a very good football team, and at the trade deadline, they got worse by trading all-pro safety Kevin Byard to the Philadelphia Eagles. If the Titans decided to truly sell at the trade deadline and strip everything down and start over with their franchise, which I believe they should have gone into full rebuild mode, they should have also dealt all-pro running back Derrick Henry along with other veteran players. In 2022, the Titans finished 7-10, missing the playoffs. And 2021, they went 12-5 as the number 1 seed in the AFC. But since going 12-5 in 2021, it's been proven that the Titans were frauds that year. They overachieved as they lost their opening home playoff game that year. Since then, things have fallen off a cliff for their franchise. Now, good news for Tennessee, well, except for Ryan Tannehill, is due to Ryan Tannehill's injury, Will Levis has gotten a chance to make his first career start a few weeks ago. And in his first career start, he had one of the best rookie QB performances of all time, throwing 4 touchdown passes. But since his first career start and his last 2, he has failed to throw a touchdown pass, which, if you're a quarterback and you fail to throw a touchdown in the game, that's not leading to success, and you're probably not playing very well unless your team for some reason runs for 4 or 5 touchdowns. But anyways, Will Levis, since his first start of his career, has shown a mixed bag of results. Now, Levis is a young kid with a terrific arm strength, and if he remains healthy, I think he deserves a shot to finish out the season as the starter in Tennessee to give them a chance to see if they have their franchise QB in the building or they need to look elsewhere, either in the draft or via free agency, for their franchise signal caller. If I'm the Titans in the offseason, I trade most veterans I have on the team, including Derrick Henry, season because he's a running back. Their shelf life is a lot less than, say, a quarterback, offensive lineman, or receiver, or any other position in the league, to hopefully get some sort of value in return. But as things sit right now, the future is not bright in Tennessee. Leaving the best division for last in football, we have the AFC North. Let's start with the division-leading 7-3 Baltimore Ravens. Now, for Baltimore, they lost a heartbreaker at home, blowing a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter to the Cleveland Browns last week. They look to get back on track tonight, as I'm recording this video on Thursday, as they square off on Thursday Night Football against the Joe Burrow-led Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the good news for the Ravens is Lamar Jackson is having his best season of his career since his 2019 MVP winning season, as he has the Ravens, as I mentioned, 7-3, as the Ravens have the head coach in place with John Harbaugh, and they got the quarterback in place, Lamar Jackson. Now, the Ravens are in a great spot to make a run, which could end in their first Super Bowl appearance, which they won back in 2012, where they beat the 49ers in the famous game that was played in the New Orleans Superdome when the lights went out. With that being said, the Ravens have no further margin, as they lost this previous Sunday, as I mentioned, to the Browns. No further margin for error, as every team in the AFC North is over 500, right behind Baltimore, hungry to steal the division title away. It's simple for the Ravens. You control your own destiny, and if you take care of business, you'll win the division. The Pittsburgh Steelers are the second-place team in the NFC North at 6-3 on the season. But being realistic for the Pittsburgh Steelers, in my mind, Pittsburgh is the worst team in the league who supports a winning record. Their success to this point in the season is not sustainable unless they turn things around quickly offensively, as they have a bottom 5 offense in the league. And supporting that bottom 5 offense in the league, they have a minus 26 point differential. Them and Seattle, who sits at minus 1 point differential, are the only 2 teams in the entire league who have given up more points than scored to have a winning record. That is not sustainable to be a playoff team and also be a consistent winning team in the NFL, as you can't, for an entire season, give up more points than you score and realistically be a contender in this league. Now, where the poor play starts offensively for the Pittsburgh Steelers is Kenny Pickett. It's simple. He's got to play better if the Pittsburgh Steelers truly want to be a contender and make the playoffs. Now, in my mind, the Steelers are pretenders. To all you Steeler fans out there, this may be tough for you to hear, but y'all are pretenders. You're not a good football team, as bad as this offense is. And it's simple. Kenny Pickett has 6 touchdown passes in 9 games started. Yes, 6 touchdowns in 9 games started. For a starting quarterback in the NFL, that's one of the worst numbers I've ever seen in NFL history. It's embarrassing. On top of that, in his last 4 games, he's thrown for a total of 1 touchdown. Now, I know Steeler fans would tell me that if any of them are watching this video, well, you're going to sit here and tell me you blame offensive coordinator Matt Canada. Well, from everything I've seen, yes, their play calling can be questionable at times, but you can't put everything on the offensive coordinator, because if your quarterback has also thrown 6 touchdowns in 9 games, don't you need to kind of blame the quarterback a little bit as well? So, in my opinion, I think it should be closer to a 50-50 split between Pickett and Canada deserving the blame for the poor play on offense. But then again, the offensive line has looked okay. The run game's been spotty at times as well. So, with that being said, you can't blame everything on the offensive coordinator and the quarterback. But for you Steeler fans, I know you're not going to like this, but hey, it's likely that you're going to be sitting on the couch for a second consecutive postseason because for me, I have no faith that Kenny Pickett's going to turn this season around, start playing good football, and the Steelers are going to win a ton of games down the stretch. So, Steeler fans, you're probably going to drop out of the playoff picture and be sitting on the couch, like I said, watching the postseason yet again. Now, the third place in the AFC North is tied with the Pittsburgh Steelers at 6-3, and that's the Cleveland Browns. They have a top 5 defense in the league through 9 games with Myles Garrett just running over offensive lines, and that Browns pass rush is incredible. Now, where the Browns have had their fair share of struggles this year, well, for starters, they lost Nick Chubb early in the year to a season-ending ACL tear. And to make matters worse for the Browns, the other day it was reported Deshaun Watson would miss the remainder of the regular season with a broken bone in his throwing shoulder. Now, what's crazy about Watson's injury that he suffered is he got it while getting a massage. No, just kidding. Deshaun Watson did not get hurt while getting a massage, as he got hurt likely in the Sunday game, taking multiple hard hits when they beat the Baltimore Ravens. In his place, Cleveland is going to start rookie QB Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He started one game earlier this season, which he faced the Baltimore Ravens, where he threw 3 interceptions while the Browns went on to get demolished 28-3. Yikes. That was one of the ugliest games on the season, one of the most lopsided games on the year, as Dorian Thompson-Robinson will have a second chance to prove himself at home this week against the aforementioned Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Cleveland has faced their fair share of challenges this year. This will clearly be their biggest challenge, as questions remain. Can they remain in the playoff picture? Just like with the Steelers, I think the Browns will quickly fall out of the playoffs, though only time will tell. I have the Browns and the Steelers falling out of the playoff picture, with other teams taking their playoff spots as the season moves on, as both of them, I believe, will be watching the playoffs from home yet again. Last but not least, the final team to talk about on the AFC side in this video is going to be the 5-4 Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the Bengals head into Week 11 as they play tonight in a tough road matchup against the Ravens. Now, this is not a must-win game for Cincinnati, but for their playoff hopes, it may be a must-win game for them, as they really cannot afford to drop a second game in a row to move to 5-5 on the season. So, it's not a must-win game, but it's about as close as you can get to a must-win game on the year, as since they started the season 1-3, Joe Burrow has stormed back and gotten the Bengals back into the hunt, as he's come alive in recent weeks, turning the season around to where they're at current day. Now, the Bengals still have a ton of work left to do, as they dug a big hole to start the year, as many believed the Bengals would be Super Bowl contenders coming into the year. Now, they could very well turn their season around, make the playoffs, and make a Super Bowl run, because with their offense and a solid defense, they're more than capable of making that Super Bowl run. Now, the good news is Joe Burrow looks to be healthy, as he sustained that preseason injury and was clearly not healthy the first 4 to 5 weeks of the year. The good news is he's played a lot better as of late, so like I said, he seems to be healthy. Now, the bad news is for the Bengals, T. Higgins is not healthy. Jamar Chase has a back injury. I believe he's likely to play tonight on Thursday Night Football, but the Bengals have some other key injuries that they're going to need to get those players back in order for them to sustain some kind of run. It can't all be on Joe Burrow. He's going to need help. So starting tonight, we're going to find out what the Bengals are made of, as I believe they need a key win to move to 6-4 on the season. They'll square off with the Ravens, so we'll see which Cincinnati Bengals team shows up. Now, that'll do it for here in this video. For those of you who don't know me, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm Clark Crawford. If you like this video and you like my sports talk, hit that subscribe button for more on my channel at Clark Crawford Sports. Don't forget to subscribe as I mentioned, and thank you for watching.